Welcome back, agency owners. I'm excited. I have another amazing two guests coming on. It's been a long time since I've done a three-way on the podcast. And we're going to talk about the three biggest investments you can do next year. We're going to talk about Verblio's survey that they did to all these agency owners that you need to be aware of. So let's go ahead and get into the show. Hey, Laura and Steve, welcome to the show.
Hey,
Hi,
Jason,
happy to
good
be
to be
here.
back.
Awesome. Well, Steve, welcome back. Laura, welcome to the show. So I'm going to start with ladies first. Tell us who you are and what do you do, and then we'll maybe get to Steve later.
Sure. Well, I'm Laura Smouse. I'm the VP of Product Marketing at Verblio. We're a content creation marketplace and platform, and I've been doing some sort of messing around at the intersection of marketing and technology for over a couple decades now, with the last number of years really focused on product marketing for high growth startups. So really happy to join.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the show. And Steve, I don't know how we let you back on, but tell us who you are and what you do.
Thanks for having me back. I'm Steve Pockrast. I'm the CEO of Verblio. I've been here for 5 years. I've been working in startups, nonprofits, and Fortune 500 for the last 20 something years, always in high growth industries. And Verblio is one of the intersection of two of my favorite places: the future of marketing and the future of work.
I love it. I love it. Well, let's go ahead and get into why everyone's listening. You every year you guys do an amazing survey and you always find out really cool stuff. So what have you found out in the survey? What are the kind of the three big investments that we need to be thinking about for 2022?
Well, I think the first piece is just that the demand for content has only increased. So that's a really good thing for all of us, but it is perhaps a really frustrating thing for a lot of the agencies that we've been polling, because they're having a lot of the second piece of that would be they're having a lot of trouble meeting that demand. So whether it's hiring, whether it's figuring out how to assemble a team of freelancers, or whether it's leveraging technology or platforms like ours, they're having a lot of trouble making it work to meet that demand. So they know there's this huge growth opportunity, but rising to the challenge is tough. And I think along with that, there's all of the change that that you deal with at any time, but it's just accelerated. So new content types, huge focus on video, and I think the biggest piece is figuring out where does AI fit into this puzzle? Is it friend or foe for digital agencies? And the ones who are smart enough to figure out how to leverage that are really seeing an unfair advantage.
Awesome. And let's talk about, how are certain things changing in our market around blog posts or landing pages or, or the use of video? What are you guys seeing?
Well, I think the first is just that there was already a challenge with content saturation, and the bar for content quality and what it takes to actually get noticed and sort of and maintain performance was already really high. But I think with the pandemic, there's been this massive rush online, so there's just more stuff, right? So the definition of what's good, what's performing content, whether it be a blog post or a landing page, has changed and keeps changing. I think that's the first piece. And then also understanding that it's not an option really not to do video, not to have mixed media content, different ways to consume your content, and to have that really be not only some standalone pieces, but part of everything you do. So really enhancing what used to just be written form content so that it's more engaging, so that more audiences can engage with it and it can live in more places successfully.
Yeah, when I first started in this business 8 years ago, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I don't think I had this many gray hairs, Steve, or Laura, but I saw so many people just writing blog posts and that's all they were doing. And I felt like there was a lot of tone being lost. And then I also saw when I just started doing video, because I was a horrible writer before we started using you guys, like literally it was like, people are like, you're an idiot. No more writing. Um, but I like to kind of do the combo of, using all of the different mediums. Like, when I was made aware of you guys, I really liked it because I was like, hey, I'm going to send you my videos, and then you guys kind of summarize this in a blog post, and then we can turn it into micro content, all that kind of different, really cool stuff. Do you find that a lot of agencies, that are using you, are they using you for that, or what? What do you see the trends going to?
I mean, I think the really smart ones are, and I think that's one of the cool things. I mean, there are a lot of agencies and direct brands that are using us to just build their core business. They've recognized that content is not only a thing that's necessary to grow a successful business, but it can actually be at the heart of the business itself. So we're certainly seeing that, definitely with niche agencies that really understand that they can focus in one specific area. They can really scale and knock it out of the park by leveraging Verblio as a close partner. Um, but I think there's still quite a few that focus on just one content type, just delivering it in one way, and haven't really looked at how do you think about content as really being repurposable, chopping it up and making the most out of like basically every dollar you spend there by making sure that it can live across channels, and that people can consume it how they want to consume it, and knowing that a lot of us are on the go. We're almost entirely on mobile devices, but we do still have that human need for deep, rich, engaging content. So it's not one or the other. And I think that that's a thing, a trend that is going away is really over relying on technology and not thinking about the fact that we do need this really well-rounded content mix to have an effective, content effort.
Gotcha.
I think so too. And so one of the things that it follows is, so content is really following a classic marketing channel trend, which is it matures every single year. And as it matures, basically things that were cutting edge before now become must-haves. And so what we're finding is you've got your marketers who are still doing the must-haves, which is blogs. It just requires more every year. So now it requires blogs, SEO optimization, more frequency, more video. And then we have this next layer of agencies that are looking at how do you actually use this really powerful channel to create more of a competitive advantage, especially as it's becoming a more powerful marketing channel. And so we have a lot of agencies that are investing in how do you go much bigger than ever thought of before if you have a partner that can help you provide it, to do hundreds of pieces a month and really create a competitive moat. And so we're seeing these really kind of these three different types of agencies. And I think it's also one other point to pull out is it really depends on what verticals your agency is looking for. If you're in a super laggard industry, you can use some of the old techniques and it still works. But if you're in a super competitive one, like personal injury attorneys, where everyone's fighting tooth and nail in order to be successful, you really have to be at the edge.
And so, is the solution just do more, like more content? Is that the trend that you guys see?
I mean, I think it's a little more nuanced than that. I think one piece is do more. So all of the things that were true before are still true, right? You still need
Mm-hmm.
consistency, you still need frequency. That's kind of the bummer, right? Is those have become table stakes. But now we're starting to look at things like content refreshes as important a part of your content strategy as new content creation. And so there's a level of sophistication required to understand what's the right mix for any given client for any given month. What should you be focusing on? And that's, I think, where it's difficult as an agency to do that without a partner, to really even understand what are the options, and then to agencies, I think, in general are somewhat risk averse, and hiring more people can be a real dangerous proposition if you don't know that you can maintain that. So I think leveraging a partner that you trust, that you can turn on and off, scale up and down over time as your needs change, is a safer way to grow, and also to be able to bring that expertise to your agency without having to always hire.
So I like that you mentioned content refresh, and I think a lot of us, it's kind of like I did a masterclass for 50 agency owners yesterday, and I talked about the low hanging fruit in sales, right? And that's contacting your existing clientele and looking at the old prospects, right? That's low hanging fruit. And I look at kind of content refreshing as low hanging fruit for content you already created. So can you talk a little bit more about how are people doing that? Like, are they looking at Google Analytics and being like, man, this page is getting a lot of traffic, but like we've changed it a little bit. We should maybe redo this, or what?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few different flavors of it, and I think that the agencies that we're seeing really take the lead on content refresh, understand that they're talking about that, and they're able to sort of templatize their strategy or process to match what they're trying to do. I mean, there are some very straightforward ones. My people really focusing on, for example, local SEO for personal injury attorneys. You're going to want to make sure that every one of those many, many hundreds of posts or pages is really hyper focused on danger in that area, or things that might happen, things that are really relevant to that specific location, and just going back and making sure that that information is the statistics are up to date, that it is hyper relevant to the area. All of that is working really well, and from a strategy perspective, that's pretty formulaic. And then you have other ones that are going back and saying, hey, we had this really strong performing post, it's declining. How do we understand what's missing now, maybe what other people have caught up on, what other people who are ranking have added, that looking for content gaps. And then I think there are some that recognize that content's not really precious anymore, right? They may have thought something was going to do really well, put a lot of time into it, and I think just accepting that the analytics are not telling that story, and maybe it's just the search intent was not there, right? So you may have thousands of words, and it should have been a listicle, something like that. Recognizing we're barking up the right tree, that people are looking for this, but the way that we did it isn't working, and we need to redo it and make it a better match what people are actually looking for, and then that will be much more successful as part of the mix.
And
Gotcha.
we
I
see this
love it.
as kind of it's still formulating how agencies are going to work with this the most successfully. We have agencies that are basically saying, hey, we're going to do our table stakes, and then everything left over we'll put into SEO content or into content refreshes. We have agencies that are coming in and saying, hey, our policy is 5 to 10% of your blogs will, or your posts will refresh every year. And then we have agencies that are looking at it bigger and basically saying, hey, we think if we use this percentage, it could be 35%, we refresh all of these, this is the cost for all of these, this is the ROI we expect you to get, and are selling them as larger packages. So we're looking forward to the dynamic trends as they evolve with agencies.
I love it.
Yeah, and we're finding too that their clients are open to it. Really, even in terms of what they're charging for it, it's almost an even swap. They're starting to recognize the value and be as willing to pay for content refresh as they are for new content creation, provided that they can be sort of walked through how that's going to impact them.
What should agencies stop doing in the new year, that you guys have found?
I think one thing is maybe an over-reliance on technology. So as we know the rules change constantly, the algorithms change constantly. So there has been a huge sort of swarm towards really relying on those tools to tell us what to write and how to write it. But that's created this sort of sameness in what's out there, and they've forgotten the human element, right? So I think those that complete reliance on technology to do that, thinking that it is really something that can be done without having that human touch, I think will start to go away, because uniqueness and sort of authenticity is a piece that is still required for content to perform really well, and you can't get that necessarily out of a machine.
Yeah.
And I'll add that I think there's like a couple of different ways that we have agencies that manage us. The agencies that have a person who's senior level, who's in charge of content at their agency, who looks at it all the time and is consistent, perform really well. And then we'll have agencies who have a different contact for each member, or for each one of their clients, to work with Verblio without having somebody oversee it and how to get the most value from their content. And so we'd really recommend that there's a content lead at your company, whether they're part of each one of your client representation or not.
Gotcha. And where does, you know, for the past year, I've been hearing a lot around AI, around content writing. Where does that fit in? How do you feel that that's changing things in the industry?
Well, I think for folks who are relying on it completely, they are getting a sort of sameness or a lack of originality in the content. So I think that is maybe not the direction I'd recommend. I would say that figuring out how to use AI for the things that humans are bad at, and use humans for the things humans are good at. So an example of that would be humans are bad at getting started, right? They're bad at doing that first step towards that task, and AI can really do a lot right now to give you a content outline, to give you a draft, to help you understand points you should be hitting, to do some of that underlying research, even for fairly specific topics. We've done a lot of exploration of the tools that are out there, and I could write an article on orthopedic surgery that would at least cover a lot of the bases, right? So kind of getting you to that a jump start is one piece. Humans are also bad at, I think, knowing how thorough they or how closely they're following a process. When you think about someone's own ability to determine whether or not they're following a sales script or something like that, not super high. So I think just being really honest about what we're good or bad at, and then using AI for those things, because it is really good at making sure you can be consistent, repeatable, that there's some sort of ability to learn over time, and to actually catalog that information, but allowing humans to really focus on some of that originality and uniqueness, bringing voice and tone. AI is improving there, and it may get there, but there are still a lot of challenges, I think, in bringing that originality to content that AI has not so far been able to touch. So the marriage of the two really, to me, seems to be the ticket.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna let you guys on a secret. I'm doing the Scooby Doo moment. I'm really an AI bot. Jason's actually ski. No, I'm just kidding. That would be cool though if
Cool.
it could do that. Well, this has all been amazing. Is there anything I didn't ask you both that you think would benefit the audience before we wrap up and tell them about your guys' special offer for the listeners?
Oh, that's a really that's a really good question. Yeah, I mean, I think Steve mentioned having one person be your point of contact, something like that, to just make sure that you can leverage efficiencies, pattern match. I think just thinking about how can you consolidate the types and entities that are creating content in your organization. We have a lot of folks who have internal content teams. They have external freelancers. They're messing around with some different platforms and some different things. They're trying the sort of generic marketplaces like an Upwork or a Fiverr, and that's a ton of overhead. And even if you get it right a few times, being able to scale that predictably is super difficult. So I think that agencies should really focus on how can we make our own lives easier and take away some of that overhead, and really focus on a handful of scalable resources that can work together. Because again, focus on what humans are good at. That time and mental energy is much better spent thinking through strategy for your clients and strategy for your agency growth than it is just doing air traffic control. So that
Awesome.
would be my advice.
And
Well, and
oh, Steve, go on.
I have a totally different line of thought, which is I'm just thinking back, Jason, to when you were our first guest on our podcast when we were trying to right at the beginning of March 2020, as we were talking about what marketers should do at the downfall. And one of the big things that you stressed was take really good care of your clients. This is when they need you the most. This is the most important time to be authentic people, to really care about who you're working with. And I think we're at the opposite side of that trend right now, which is there is so much business to be had by so many companies. And we're seeing so many junior level people coming on and working at agencies and scaling as quickly as possible. I would just say, please be really conscious of your clients and the relationships you want to build on the way up. How many can you take on and really do well? Because they'll remember it at the downturn too, and we'll be having similar discussions. Hopefully not soon, but at the next downturn, we all know that the cycles keep happening.
Yeah, anybody can be doing good in business right now. So, you know, I love that. It's very customer focused. Well, awesome. Tell us about where people can go to try you guys out, and tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, anybody listening here can go to verblio.com/smart agency and get a nice discount on getting started with Verblio. And you can also find out a lot more about what we do and all the different types of content we can help you with.
Awesome. Well, guys, really appreciate you guys coming on. Make sure you guys go to verblio.com/smart agency. We've used them for so many years. They do an amazing job. If you're not using them, go try them out. And until next time, have a swank day.